Thank you. All right. Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, February 4th at 5 p.m. and we are convening this meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission at the Life Saving Station here in Dewey Beach, Delaware. I'm Dave Lyons, the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I'm calling this meeting to order. This meeting is being convened in accordance with the rules of the state of Delaware and the town of Dewey Beach. It is also being live streamed via Zoom, and we are here in attendance at the Life Saving Station here in Dewey Beach. So with that, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We'll go ahead and move to a roll call of the committee members. Mike Harmer. Here. Jack Redifer. Not here. Mark Norquist. Here. Myself, Dave Lyons. Jimmy O'Connor. Here. I also want to welcome Mimi McKinnon. He is new to the group. Welcome.
I'm here.
We're going to have you come back, just introduce yourself. Let's do town officials. Dawn Hanks. I see Dawn is here.
Yes, I am.
All right. Hello, Dawn.
Hi there.
Fred Townsend. Hello. And Bill Zolper.
Present.
And I see Commissioner Persinger here as well. All right. I think that's it. Mimi, since you're new to the group, why don't we just take a minute and just let you give a chance to just introduce yourself to the group.
Okay, I'm Mimi McKinnon. I've had a house here in Dewey for almost 25 years on Buena Street. But I became sort of I was a full-time resident for a while, I don't know, 15 years ago, and then I wasn't. And now I am again as of about a year and a half ago. I am sort of recently retired. My career was as a Maryland lawyer in various capacities, although I've had a number of other sort of occupations along the way. But I've always had an interest in zoning issues. I actually did early project on zoning way back in the dark ages when I was in high school and the dinosaurs were still roaming. So I'm happy to be here, and
Great.
let's go.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your service. We really do. So, okay. The next item, or the first action here, is to adopt the agenda for today's meeting. So can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Thank you, Jimmy. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The next item is to move on the minutes. Let's approve the minutes from the meeting of September 17th, 2024. Anybody have any questions about those minutes at all?
None. Motion to approve.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. As we go here, I'm going to open the public discussion on each agenda item as we talk about it. First, I just want to open, is there any general comments that anybody would like to make? Got some folks in public, so just any general comments that anybody would like to make, not related to any of the agenda items? Any of the commission members? No? Anybody on the public on Zoom? Okay. With that, then, we're going to go ahead and move to the first agenda item. Everyone should have copies here at the table, and it is posted online. So the first item is, it's a public hearing regarding an ordinance to allow property owners in a flood zone to add 1 additional foot of freeboard with a corresponding increase of 1 foot in maximum building height as an additional voluntary measure of flood protection. So just so everybody gets a little perspective on this, we've discussed this topic several times in the commission here. It's also been, the commissioners have discussed it, and also on Charter and Code. We, as a commission, recommended on September 17th to increase freeboard to 3 feet. On October 18th, the commissioners approved ordinance 846, which increased mandatory freeboard to 2 feet. After some discussion, went back to Charter and Code, and on December 11th, Charter and Code recommended that the Planning Commission and Town Commissioners approve legislation to allow property owners the option of 1 additional foot of freeboard. So it's back to us tonight. to consider giving homeowners the option to increase to 3 feet.
I have a question
Sure.
about it, which is, and I guess this is my sort of legal brain doing legal things, which is if you say a minimum, that sort of suggests to me that you can do anything greater than the minimum. And that where you run into the rub is because it's attached to elevation and the ordinance allows you to add your freeboard to the elevation, then your elevation goes up. So if I say I want my freeboard to be 6 feet or 8 feet or 10 feet, whatever, because I want to be able to put my car under my house, I want to just raise my whole house, then I don't want the ordinance to say, okay, then you can have those 10 feet, that's fine, but you can't have your elevation an additional 10 feet.
So, Dawn, I'm going to ask for some help on this one. So I believe the building height, which is what you're talking about, does not change. So while we up the freeboard, the building height cannot be greater than 35 feet.
Well, here's what, section 7
Right.
indicates that if you have the freeboard, you can have an additional foot up or an additional 2 feet up. And the change in the ordinance would add any additional optional freeboard. So that's also going to allow people to go up an additional foot
In building height?
in building height. That's the way I read it.
No. Dawn, can you maybe provide some guidance on that?
Our current code requires any home within a special flood hazard area that has what's called the base flood elevation, that starting point of a 32-foot high building, and that's the maximum building height. The starting point for that 32 feet starts where FEMA says the base flood elevation is, plus your freeboard. So if you've got the base flood elevation here, your freeboard starting here, regardless of how much freeboard you have per code, in compliance with code, your building height of 32 feet starts here. So it's the starting point on top of the freeboard that gives you the maximum building height.
Right, so
32 feet, but the elevation will change 1 foot higher if you opt for, if the property owner would opt for that extra 1 foot.
So that might be a reason a person would want the additional foot of freeboard to be able to get up another, get the
Yes.
Right.
height a foot higher.
Yes,
Let's
right.
get off the ground too.
Right?
Yeah.
Gonna move it off the ground and we'll put 1 foot. So that's the challenge here is, base elevation, ground level versus base elevation. So a building could appear to tower now because base elevation is actually higher than what is ground elevation, which you see. So that's one of the things we discussed last time as we considered it. So the building height though is the same. You can start it higher, and this change would basically allow us to go, if our freeboard was 2 and now we approve 3. So Commissioner said it to 2. We're saying now the homeowner will have the option to add 1 additional foot to go back to 3.
But then is that a maximum?
That's a maximum. I think the way it's worded, and I really do see where you're coming from, because the freeboard is referred to as a minimum of 2 feet. But the additional freeboard, the 1 foot that we're trying to grant, is a maximum of 1 foot.
Right, so
So-
I have a problem with the language,
Right.
not the concept.
There's that legal mind coming.
Yeah, I know, I'm sorry.
It's a good question,
It's a
but
good
the
question.
additional freeboard is up to, which I think is clearly establishing a maximum. So you could
Can we,
utilize less than that if you chose to.
can we tweak the language?
I don't think we want to tweak the sentence that precedes the additional freeboard sentence. So I'm sure there's another way the same thing could be phrased. Do you have a suggestion? An additional, well, if it was just if the words were just rearranged, an additional foot of freeboard may be added as an option.
Oh,
Dave, can I
Yes.
interject something?
sure, Gary.
Part of this, you have to look at the provision in Table 2 with respect to building height. Because I think as Dawn was trying to say, you really could have a maximum, you could have more than 2 feet of freeboard. 2 feet is mandatory, but you can't exceed 32 feet currently from that 2 feet of freeboard level. So, if you went up an additional 2 feet, if you wanted to build in 4 feet of freeboard, you'd still be limited to 32 feet from the 2 foot level.
Yeah, Gary,
Yes.
you're referring to table 2, right, in section 185 of the code?
I mean, maybe
Yeah, so-
that's the language to change.
I mean, there is a proposed change in Table 2.
Right.
Which is Section 7. Again, there's never been any plan or, I think, provision within our code to actually limit the amount that someone could raise their house. You can go above the freeboard level, but you're stuck with that 32-foot limit from the 2 feet of freeboard level. Is that clear?
So if you take an additional foot, you lose a foot of height in your house.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
Your house just gets.
Yeah, your house
Right.
gets smaller.
So if
Basically,
you
so-
took out the "and any optional freeboard" in that table, then you have what Gary's talking about. You're 3 foot, 32 feet plus the 2 foot freeboard is all you're going to get, no matter how high you take your freeboard.
That's the way it is now, but the proposal here was to allow an additional optional 1 foot of freeboard. And if you opt to do that, then you could get an additional foot in height. But you could go to 3 or 4 feet, but you would not get any additional height.
Building height.
I mean, our original proposal on changing freeboard was to go to 3 feet. That was recommended by Charter and Code. It was recommended by P&Z. But when we got to the commissioner level, there was some hesitation to do that, and we only went to 2 feet. So we thought that as an additional incentive in some sense, we might encourage people to go an additional foot, and in exchange for that, if they wish to do that, to give them an additional foot of height, so they wouldn't be constrained. They wouldn't actually lose a foot of height by going an additional foot. If you go anything beyond that, at least under this proposal, you would still be limited by the 32 feet. I guess there is a question, if you went under this proposal, if you went 4 feet, if you went an additional 2 feet, it would have to be clear that you could only get 1 additional foot of height. And I'm not sure that that's well covered here.
That's opposite of what I just asked. I asked, we added that extra to make it 3. You lose 8 foot of your building, so you only get
That's-
31 feet.
That's my understanding.
That's what I
Yeah.
understand.
That's my understanding.
That's because the building envelope, if you will, is 32 feet on top of the freeboard.
Right.
And I think some of this confusion is that we're referring to this additional foot as freeboard when it's really not freeboard. Freeboard is the prescribed 2 feet. And if you elevate higher than that, you're elevating beyond freeboard. But we need to be very careful that this exception for measuring height, which creates this building envelope of 32 feet, is tied to freeboard right now. And that's why I think there's some instinct to call this additional foot freeboard, so we're not messing up that definition,
The building height.
the building height limitation. Because it's if you're not in a special flood hazard area, what is it, 30, 35 feet?
Right,
Yeah,
measured from grade.
Yeah, from grade.
Right.
Again, some of this could be fixed in table two by allowing one additional foot in height if you go up to one additional foot of freeboard. And we have to look at the definition of freeboard. I'm not sure if it's talks only about mandatory freeboard or just in terms of the amount that you raise your house above the FEMA required level. But again, the intent was only to allow one additional foot in height if you go up to one additional foot of freeboard. If you go anything beyond that, you would not have any differential height increase.
Keith
So,
got the-
I've got the definition here, and Kate has. So the first sentence is a factor of safety usually expressed in feet above a flood elevation for purposes of floodplain management.
Okay.
It doesn't say that it is prescribed necessarily by the governmental regulatory authority.
Right.
Right.
I know we do not want to tinker with the definition of freeboard, which I think was prescribed upon us by the,
Yeah, let's stay
By
in
the Fed,
in FEMA. So I guess I want to get some public comment here as well, just to kind of open up. Let's get the public comment and let's come back and see if there is some kind of suggested change to the ordinance that we want to make or some actual suggested words. I get the concern. I think we just don't want to create confusion in the change. So let me do this. Let's. Any other comments from the commissioners here at this point? Okay. Let me just go out to Dawn. Go ahead. Do you have a comment?
yes, I do. Perhaps I could help with an illustration. There is a difference between height and elevation. Those two words are not synonymous in this context. The illustration would be if I, and I'm going to pretend, went out to the beach, stood on the sand on the beach, and I said, you know, I am 6 feet tall, 6 feet high on the beach. And so my elevation would be 6 feet because my body height is 6 feet. However, if I went to stand on Mount Everest, what would be my body height? It would still be 6 feet. But the elevation would be much greater, thousands of feet tall. So my height does not change. The elevation does. So in this illustration could possibly help to understand that by adding additional height of freeboard, your elevation goes up, but the maximum distance that you could start your building starts at freeboard, whether it would be 1, 2, or 3. The maximum building height is 32 feet. So yes, everything does seem to go up taller, but elevation is not the same as height. I don't know, that may be more confusing after I
There's a good
said it.
definition in the PowerPoint that's part of the agenda in a supporting document. It
Good
explains it.
illustrations in our code meeting that we had to look at too.
Yeah. So I guess this is the presentation that I put together, I guess, when we considered this last summer, and I just scaled it down for a piece of it here. But there's some definitions here in terms of what Dawn's talked about, which is height refers to the vertical distance from the base of an object to its top. which is, the context is basically used to describe size of buildings, trees, mountains, and other objects. So the height of a building might be 50 feet from the ground to the roof. To Dawn's point here, elevation refers to the vertical distance of a point or object above a reference level, usually sea level. That's really the difference between height and elevation. So the building height, as we talked about, is capped. It's capped at 32 feet in a special flood hazard area and 35 feet in a non-special flood hazard area. It's pretty clear in the code that it is capped at those things. So I don't know if that kind of addresses your thinking. I'll let you think about it while I'll open up to the public, see if we get any more comments. So at this point, I'll open the room. Any public comments on the topic? Okay, great. So there's nobody else in the room. I see anybody else. Anybody on Zoom would like to make a public comment? No? Okay. So I don't have any more public comment at this point. So
Let me make a drafting suggestion.
Yes, go ahead.
If you go to the table, and instead of saying, and any optional freeboard, it's reading the whole sentence. For buildings in any special flood area, maximum building height is 32 feet measured from the elevation of the 1% annual flood level on the appropriate effective
FEMA map.
whatever, blah, blah, blah. Town mandatory freeboard, except where there is additional freeboard of 1 foot or more, or in any VE where 1 additional foot of height shall be permitted.
So,
And then I'm putting the 1 additional, somehow the 1 additional foot gets in there with the exception.
so could I?
The ESFA.
Can I make a suggestion? First of all, it's apparent to me from listening to all the comments that I think everybody understands the concepts, that there's a
Right.
distinction. So I don't think we have a substantive issue. And this body is being asked to make a recommendation to the commissioners. I think all these comments are important, and between the time this recommendation is made and when the commissioners act, there should be an ample opportunity to take into consideration. And I don't want to cut the conversation short either. I think there's something we could all benefit from in terms of improving the language, whether we do it today or whether we supplement a recommendation. If the board, if the planning commission moves the recommendation forward to the commissioners, I think there will be some downtime in which we can really drill down on this and see if we can improve this language without having any unintended impacts on other areas of the code.
So I guess would that be acceptable if we?
Absolutely. I mean, it seems to me that everybody's in agreement that conceptually what Gary's talking about, that we want to let people raise their house if they want to, but we don't want them to go more than a foot higher.
Right. No more than a foot high. That's exactly it. So, okay. So with that, then I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment. And what I'm going to suggest we do is I'm going to ask for a motion that we recommend this ordinance, and we ask that the commissioners consider some wording that tightens up building height, that absolutely cannot go higher than the 32, higher than the 35. There's no unintended consequence in this change that would allow somebody to go higher than that.
Okay. And no unintended consequence that somebody can't elevate their house from the bottom up
Right.
to a higher level
To a higher
than
level.
3
right. You
feet.
can't go higher than, the building height is capped.
Yeah.
Either 32, no matter where you start, it's capped at 32 or 35.
But your starting level is not being limited by this. You can still go 4 feet, 5 feet, whatever you want.
With your first,
Oh, yeah.
with your first.
But you don't get anything, you don't
Yeah,
get
if your
anything
house
on
becomes
top.
less, then you're-
Right. Basically
Right.
a ranch house on top of. whatever.
Exactly, a ranch house on
Got it.
a bunch of houses, that's what yours is. Okay, So if we're in agreement with that, then I'm going to ask for a motion to go ahead and adopt the ordinance with this recommended changes. And again,
I'll make a motion
Thanks.
to
Thanks,
adopt
Mike.
the ordinance with the recommended changes and flexibility to hone in on some perfect wording before the recommendation goes to
Perfect.
commissioners.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All right, Mimi, thank you. All
Yeah,
right.
the motion's fine. And Ms. McKenna, I really did not mean to.
No, you
short-
didn't cut me
you're
off.
To short circuit the, because I want to hear, you were close to finishing your thoughts, I think. I was just afraid about, I was afraid that we would get engaged in some debate and then possibly do something on the fly that might interfere with what we all intend, which is to allow the council to move forward with this.
Yeah, no,
concept.
I'm very comfortable with that.
Okay,
I don't
you're
wanna-
fine. It's good.
I don't want to get us into the weeds that we don't need to be in.
Good to have
So,
the conversation.
so would it be, are you willing to continue to look at this?
Sure.
After the meeting?
Absolutely.
And would you be inclined to send an email to any number of us saying,
Sure.
this is what your thoughts are, and then we can make sure that they're presented in time for the council to act on?
Sure, happy to.
For I
do
guess
that.
FOIA, yeah, don't send it to me.
You don't want to know.
Yeah, for purposes, if you want to send it to Fred and I, that's fine. So we don't want to have discussions outside of this room. So-
Understood.
So, okay, with that, let's go ahead and put the motion to a vote. Mike?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Mimi?
Yes.
Jimmy?
Yes.
And I'm going to also vote yes, so the motion's carried. All right. With that, let's move to the next second agenda item, which is a public hearing to review a draft ordinance to amend Chapter 101 related to the requirements for dry proofing of non-residential structures. So this basically aligns a change that was done this summer with Freeboard. I think Commissioner Persinger asked that we make this an official change. I kind of look at this as like an administrative change, but if you take a look at what was here, it's just to clearly define the requirement for dry flood proofing requirements. It currently says 12 inches, and with our change in Freeboard, it makes it a minimum of 24 inches. So this was just missed, I think, when this was done last time. So we're basically just aligning all of our code to the 2-foot Freeboard. Commissioner Persinger, I don't know if you're there. I think that captures the change.
Yeah, it does. We just missed that on the first go around when we changed the freeboard and didn't realize that we had to deal with the dry flood proofing that's available for non-residential properties.
I'm going to ask this question just in case. So when we say 24, which is the Freeboard, but if we allow somebody to go the additional, is this is just residential, or is this also commercial?
This is just commercial.
Right, this is just commercial. Okay,
Right.
so that's the difference.
And we didn't try to put any maximum on it because if you want to dry flood your entire property, I suppose you could do that. There's no reason not to.
Okay, all right. With that, I'm going to open, any comments from the commissioners around the table? None? Okay. I'm going to open up any public comments. Anybody in the room have a comment? No? All right, how about Zoom? Any comments from anybody on Zoom? Any comments from any town officials? Bill?
None.
Dawn? Okay. Then with that, I'm going to go ahead and close the discussion on this, close the public hearing. And I'm going to move that we move to a vote. So could I get a motion to adopt the ordinance as written?
I move that the motion be adopted as written.
Second? I'll second. Thank you, Jim. All right, let's go ahead and put it to a vote. Mike?
I vote yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Mimi?
Yes.
Jimmy?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. So the motion's carried.
Okay, and can we just supply just a little bit of reasoning along with votes on
My
these
yes,
recommendations?
back to Mike, my yes was because the inconsistency in the code needed to be corrected, so I agree with the correction and the intent of the first ordinance. So both yeses to provide the additional freeboard, which I fully support, and to clean up the item that kind of got missed last time. All right?
Fred, you want me to go around the room and get that info?
Well,
input?
I think others can say they join in the comments made, but if you have comments to add to that, I appreciate it.
So my comments align with Mike in terms of the cleanup of the nature of the code.
I agree 100% with what he said, yeah. I agree with
Yeah,
the
I agree.
clarification also.
Yes, we need to be consistent.
Okay,
Consistency.
all right, we're all agreed to be consistent. We're all agreed, all right.
Code, right?
So there are no other agenda items, so I'll first go around and say, any more discussion from any of the commission members here? We have any more comments? Okay.
You can make that meeting longer. Don't we?
No,
Hold on.
no.
It's only about 30 minutes. You can sit here.
A minute over. So, okay, any other comments from anybody, public? You guys have any further comments? Okay, with that, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Take a motion to adjourn.
Mark, thank you. Jimmy, second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, meeting adjourned.